Hello everyone and welcome back to another Phoenix Guide to Dungeon Runs. Kaz here, and we're going delving into the Sanguine depths. As always, these are still in beta and they could change on release. The Sanguine depths are a prison designed by Sire Denathrius himself, and you're here to recover a rather surprising prisoner from its chains to hopefully give the Sinfall Resistance an upper hand in the fight against Denathrius. First on our list, the ever-present below-ground boss that always seems to make the cut in dungeons like these, Krixus the Voracious. Tanks will want to watch out for Vicious Headbutt, as this deals massive damage and sends you flying. Just make sure your back isn't to any of the ledges down here, and you'll be alright. Hungering Drain targets all nearby players, dealing damage and buffing the boss with Essence Surge, which increases damage done by 2% per stack, lasting 8 seconds. Ideally, you would just interrupt the boss before the cast goes on for too long. Some abilities not seen here are Juggernaut Rush, where he targets a random player and charges forward, hitting anyone along the way with absolutely massive damage and knocking them away. Now, this mechanic is a lot like the barrel through mechanic from Aka Ali from King's Rest. The more players he hits, the less damage it does to the target. The other is Severing Smash, which is cast when the boss reaches 100 energy, dealing hefty damage to all players and knocking them backwards, leaving a living essence in their place. You'll want to run into the essence as quickly as possible, because if they reach the boss, they heal him for 12% of his max health and grant a stack of Essence Surge. Note, if a player reabsorbs the essence, they take some noticeable damage, but nothing too crazy, and this does prevent the boss from healing. Next up, Executor Torvald. Castigate will be the first of an inspiring 2-ability scene, which torments a player with noticeable shadow damage and a large ring other players will want to avoid. An instant cast ability that you'll see throughout the fight summons fleeting manifestations that radiate damage to all players every second and leave a pool on the ground once they are slain. The idea is to kill them as quickly as possible so that the puddle is as small as possible, because if inside, players will take some pretty hefty shadow damage. After some trash and admiring the aesthetics, Grand Proctor Borrelia awaits you. Tanks will want to watch out for Iron Spikes, which summons 4 spikes to impale her target and deal massive physical damage. At certain health percentages, the boss will slow cast Rite of Supremacy, which deals absolutely massive damage to all players and inflicts a hard-hitting dot as well. The way around this mechanic is to watch for the zone of radiant light to spawn and stand inside to reduce the damage taken by 65% and cancel out the dot. Endless Torment targets Zerali, causing the Naru to release bolts of holy damage at players. Avoid the swirlies scattered around the room and you won't have to worry about a good chunk of damage and a long-lasting dot. After the Grand Proctor, you'll deal with a rather drawn-out gauntlet of set waves where the final boss of the dungeon, General Cal, will lend her aid to their defense, as well as a steady wave of Gargan launching themselves into the fight. Ideally, you'll damage down the trash packs one at a time before turning and damaging down the General, causing her to move up the hallway and give you a bit of relief for a couple of waves before joining back in. Watch your personals and healing cooldowns here, and you should be completely fine. After the gauntlet and a few more trash packs, you'll finally be up against the General herself. Now she only has a couple abilities, and the first you may see is Piercing Blur. This marks a player and causes images of the boss to appear on either side of the platform and rush forward, dealing massive damage to anyone caught in front of them. Just shift around and watch your placement for this, and you'll be fine. The other ability is instant, called Wicked Rush, where she marks players with arrows over their head and dashes towards them, dealing hefty physical damage and applying a bleed to the target to anyone else within 5 yards. Have your marked players back away from the party, and you'll be completely alright. Another ability not seen here is Gloom Squall, which is cast at 100 energy and deals large amounts of shadow damage and knocking players back. Make sure you aren't near a ledge if the cast starts, and you'll be safe. Another thing is Shining Radiance, which is something that happens throughout the fight courtesy of Zerali. This creates a barrier, reducing damage by 65% and removing any bleed stacks, as well as making players inside immune to knockbacks. Ideally, you'll hold on to this until the bleed stacks become unmanageable, or if the squall is about to happen. Once the boss is defeated, Draven appears to fend her off, giving you time to collect your rewards and look forward to the next dungeon. Now, this is the last dungeon video of the quote-unquote series, but bear in mind some videos will be sporadically released at the start of the expansion, and hopefully throughout. I may also stream the adventure from 50 to 60, so feel free to come join me. I'll leave the details for that elsewhere when that finally comes about. As always, these are still in beta, and they could change in release. Otherwise, good luck, happy hunting, and prepare your heroes for the adventure into the Shadowlands.